Good Vibes Only is here to take you on a journey to discover the weird and wacky world of wellness. It's brought to you by the globally renowned skin and wellness expert Marie Reynolds, who holds over 36 years of experience within the skin and well-being industry. Each week, Marie shares her own holistic lifestyle hacks and chats to other leading wellness experts to find out their good vibe story, discussing how they deal with day-to-day stress, anxiety, sleep, and skin issues. Listen in as Marie explores why, when it comes to our health and wellness, we need to look beyond the linear, question the norm, and think outside the box.
I'm here now with Dr. Ekta Yadav, and I'm really excited because the last time we spoke, I was a guest on her podcast called Skincare Anarchy. And it was really refreshing for me because I talk about my therapies and a lot of people don't get it, but Ekta just got it. And from that moment, we just really clicked. So I just wanted you to be on my podcast talking about quantum in a way that people will understand. But first of all, I'd love you to introduce yourself for my listeners.
Absolutely, Marie. Thank you so much. Yeah, I absolutely loved having you on the show, by the way. I still waiting for that part 2, but yeah. I guess this is a preview to our part 2 on Skincare Anarchy for everyone listening. For me, though, my background, Marie, is honestly, it's not too stellar. It's I'm a doctor, so I'm a trained physician in the U.S. I have an MD, an MB, executive MBA, a master's in medical physiology. But yeah, I'm a physician. I love skincare. I love skin health. I'm not a dermatologist, but I went into surgery as my career path for my MD side, and I realized that, I have a lot of different interests in medicine. So when I started Skincare Anarchy, it was kind of like a way for me to express myself, my interests. It was not at all medically, related at the time. Yeah. And as I started having amazing guests come on, such as yourself, I just found it to be something that gravitated naturally towards science. And so here we are 3 years later.
That's amazing. For me, it was just so lovely because when we talk, and we spoke about this on the episode, I'm all for thinking outside the box, and so many people are such linear thinking. And when we're talking about different transferable energies, especially with every living thing having a signature that actually affects the human body, but not only that, the skin. And it was so refreshing that you got it. And we started speaking about quantum, and that was just amazing.
No, I loved it. And I know exactly what you're talking about. It shocked me as well. Marie, like I've loved this stuff since I was in high school, and it's like, I even hate saying this stuff because it's really just reality. And, when we spoke, I was so excited because, it's real. This is reality. And I think the more people start to like gravitate towards this understanding that this isn't just hocus pocus, it's actual physics that we're talking about, like, on a quantum level, like the easier life is going to get. Trust me. I mean, it's a lot of, know what I mean.
So if you can just explain to my listeners in a very simplified form, if we can, about quantum. What is quantum?
Yeah, so quantum is a way of describing things that are happening on a subatomic level. And when I say subatomic, it means even smaller than the atom, right? Yeah. So for so many years in our science classes and just growing up in school, right, all of us have heard about our teachers telling us about atoms and all this stuff. But then this idea came forward, in the past decade or two where they're talking about quantum. And quantum came out with this understanding that there are particles and waveforms below the level of the atom itself, because before it was said that there's nothing smaller than the atom.
Yeah.
Well, that's not true.
Where the quark comes in, doesn't it?
Exactly. And then understanding that, for example, like, we learned about atoms, and when you see the structure, right, you see that nucleus in the middle and a bunch of little, like balls surrounding it that are the electrons. Mm-hmm. But what's so interesting is that there's no such thing as an electron, really, if you think about it, because you can never pinpoint at any given time where any electron is.
That's right.
So with this understanding, and then also combining it with this idea that, wow, there are these things called quarks, and what quarks are just they're energy, obviously, as everything is, but they're little waveforms that are vibrating at certain frequencies. And that's what really makes up atoms, and so it's a very interesting field of physics, I think.
And can be in two places at the same time, can't they? So it's like string theory. So this is where people can't get their head around with what I do with distance therapy. And I talk about the twinning effect. They believe that identical twins feel each other's pain because of the quarks in the uterus that they share. And so with energy therapy, what I do is I take a sample. It could be a sample of either hair or a tiny little blood spot. And they don't get that it's not the blood cell, the skin cells I'm interested in. It's the actual energetic process within that DNA that is like the quarks being in two places at the same time. You're still connected through string theory. So can you just explain a little bit about string theory?
Yeah, so string theory is really interesting to me. I think that one of the best people, by the way, just so your listeners can, do more digging, is Brian Greene. He's my favorite physicist, and he's actually one of the leading physicists behind string theory. Basically, string theory is, in a nutshell, it's an understanding of how everything works on the level of vibration. That's the best way to describe it. And really what it comes down to is this fundamental underlying principle that everything is a vibrational waveform.
Exactly.
And it's all connected. There's this continuous connection happening. And that's why they call it the theory of everything. They really wanted string theory to be this answer and this, everything, this is how it works. But, they're still doing the research and stuff around it. But really what it comes down to is what you said, actually, Marie, which is there's a lot of sharing happening. When you talk about things on a much smaller level than the atom, then you're talking about waveforms and energy connected all the time.
And it's that transferable energy with the things that are in your environment, the people that you're around, the thoughts that you're thinking, even food, like dead food and live food, like dead food, your processed foods, or your live food from the foods that you're eating. Every single thing has energy, and it has that transferable energy that has an effect on the human form.
Absolutely. And what's crazy is that I have proof of that. That's what blows my mind about this stuff, is that when you look at molecular biology and start looking at DNA structures, and you start noticing that genes now have this, they call it epigenetic modification.
That's right, exactly.
Right?
They switch on and switch off.
Yeah. Exactly. And then really what all epigenetic modification is just, you put these little methyl groups on there, which is, for everyone, is a carbon with 3 hydrogens attached to it, and you're putting that on top of genes. And now when the machinery is reading the gene to try to transcribe it and turn it into a protein and stuff, it's going to stop and say either we do too much of transcribing or just don't do it at all, that kind of thing. So you're starting to see it, bleed into biology, bleed into medicine. It's not just in the physics realm anymore, is my point.
Well, I think people are becoming much more aware of it now. I mean, like years ago, people... we spoke about people saying, it's all woo-woo stuff, or how do you get some authenticity to what you're doing? Because if people can't touch, feel, or see it, then they think it's just quackery, really. There's so much more awareness nowadays about it, even down to tap water, because water holds memory, water holds those vibrations. It goes through all the processes and all the things like that. But it also carries all of the energetics from thoughts and emotions and medications and all sorts of things from the people that it's passed through. And we can carry on those vibrations. So tap water is a big no-no for me. A lot of people obviously think about the chemical side of it, but I think about the vibration side of it and the frequency side of it. We are 75% water, which declines in age, but it will most definitely have an effect on all different aspects of the human body.
Absolutely. No, I mean, I think you've made a really great point here, Marie, which is the water aspect, because I actually spoke about this same topic, because water is so interesting. The crystallization of water tells you everything. I'm sure you're aware of those studies done by the monks, and they were meditating on certain emotions and feelings, and then the crystallization of the water showed the emotion that they were, meditating on. So that tells you that everything you said is true. Not only is energy transferable, it's being transferred from my body into this thing that's holding the water. And then on top of it, the water is now crystallizing in response to that energy. So it's really about this fine tuning of energy and really kind of finding our own balance. So I'm a huge believer in everything that you're saying, because I believe it too. I think that everything has an energetic footprint, whether that's a person coming into your home, whether that's a food that you're ingesting, whether that's the medication you're taking, it doesn't matter.
But also, when people talk about energy, they tend to think about energy as being, either energy on a kinetic level or a crystal level or a more healing level, which of course it does happen. But actually, when people think that it's all this new age stuff, if you actually think about the science behind it and understand why these energetic processes occur, and especially with pathogens, viruses, molds, bacterias, medications, all of these things have an energetic stamp within us that does affect our imbalance in our human biological process. It's so, so important that we understand that what we're putting in our body and what we're surrounding ourselves with and what we're thinking has that effect on our body as a whole.
Absolutely. It's interesting because you had mentioned string theory, and I just want to add, if you really study these principles and string theory, for example, you'll start to understand the simplicity. There is a very sophisticated simplicity that underlies everything. I'm a huge believer in that at this point, because string theory is really the proof of that. I mean, string theory was designed in a way that you're now taking three-dimensional particle physics and explaining it in a one-dimensional framework, right?
Yeah.
So that's really what string theory did. And when you look at that and you look at the real data there, it tells you that even though we're sitting here as three-dimensional beings in the space, time, reality, whatever you want to call it, there's things happening on a quantum, molecular, atomic, whatever you want to say level that is really simplifying all of it down. There's a framework that we're all built on. And that framework, I think, is the key to really good health. If we can really tap into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Bioresonance is sort of like, basically you lie on a modulation mat and you throw frequencies through the body, through the electromagnetic field of the body, and then you test to see which ones oscillate, and the frequencies of the body to support the body are things like for our organ systems, etc. And then there's frequencies that may cause an imbalance in the body, so we invert those frequencies to almost sort of like knock out the interference of the conversation between the cells, and then you imprint and support the body. And this is what I do as well with distance therapies, and it's amazing when you're dealing with frequencies and people can't get their head around it. But it's like you say, if you simplify it, if you just take away all of the white noise and you just simplify it, you get some fantastic results, because everything is basically vibration and frequency. It's just, we just vibrate at different speeds.
Exactly. And everything vibrates at different levels. And, you, like you said, you can cancel things out. Vibrations, like waveforms cancel waveforms. That's another thing. Like, it's not like we're doomed, right? It's like we can fix it. And that's where I think this kind of work is so important, and I love what you do, Marie, because it's honestly, this is the next step. This is the next frontier, for lack of a better term.
I know, but with the skincare as well, it's really interesting, because in the water-based one, I've got hydrate misting vow, and also in the oil-based ones, you can actually imprint the frequencies within that. So you get a client coming in, and from their blood sample or from their frequency testing, you can actually imprint the frequencies within the skincare. So that can be from orthomoleculars, which are your vitamins, your amino acids, to skin frequencies that you can imprint in there. So it really does tune in to the skin.
Yeah, it really does, because at the end of the day, like we said, everything responds to whatever you introduce yourself to, your body, to your cells to, is they're going to respond, and they're going to interact with it in some form. So if you can imprint something with your own vibration, this is a concept that's dated back to many centuries ago, actually. People used to meet and hold an object that was in their vicinity at all times in their hand while they meditated. Why? Because they believed that energy was going into that object, and it was going to help them as they held it throughout the times where they weren't meditating. This concept exists in the East. There is such a thing as good intentions, the science of good intentions, or the science of good vibes, or, whatever you want to call that, right?
We spoke about the book, The Secret. It is intention, and it's literally tuning into that vibration, tuning into that positive thought, and it just almost dials into that frequency.
Yeah, exactly. Since high school, I've believed in this. I think that once people start practicing it and they really see it for what it is, like and you can start anywhere, I mean, this is something I think a lot of people have this misunderstanding around is that you have all this knowledge before you can get into this. No, you can start any time in your life. But once you get it and you see the results, I don't think you're ever going to stop.
Yeah, but you can just do it by being mindful and talking to yourself while you're going to your car, or talking to yourself while you're chewing your food slowly. It's just little things like that. Just tuning in and quietening down that busy mind is really good. So what are the things that you do to ground or calm yourself down?
I love that. That's a really great question. And I'm excited to share this because I just posted about this actually like the other day. And it was a time, like, for example, like I'm going to use a scenario to answer your question, if that's okay. Like
Go for it.
The other day I was having a really bad day, and I was sitting there thinking to myself and also watching myself think, right? I mean, we do that, whether you're aware of it or not, there's always thought going on. And if you can separate yourself and watch that thought loop, you can start to understand that this is a tape that is playing over and over again in my head without any real facts behind it. So one of the big things for me is quiet time. I absolutely can't go a day without my quiet time. And what I mean by that is at night, I need 15 to 20 minutes of absolutely no disturbances, like no phones, no radios, nothing. It's just me and my thoughts. And what this does for me, I mean, you can call it meditation, whatever, but what it does is it allows me to practice that ability to sit there and say, okay, now I want to just listen to my thoughts. Where are they? Where is that like tape at right now? It really gets amplified when you're having bad days, which is why I said that originally, because you'll start noticing like the chaos of your mind, and the more you listen to it, the more it becomes louder and louder, and you start seeing it as a third person, almost watching your mind do this. And so when you do that, it gives you power, it gives you control back. And so I think that's extremely important for me personally to have that control. And that's actually a very important part of my self-care everyday ritual. I check in with myself every day, and you reset on a vibrational level because you're able to remind yourself that your mind is not, you're in your brain completely, which is a whole different, I know, discussion, but your mind is stronger than your brain. You know what I mean? Like your mind can do things your brain can't. And that's a topic that I think people need to understand. But for me, it's very prevalent in my life, and I have to remind myself constantly. So that's a big thing. Another thing is just obviously, I love skincare. So I'm like, an everyday skincare junkie. So I have my night routine. I won't lie. It's a long routine, but that's what I like.
So tell us your nighttime routine.
So think of it like Asian skincare on steroids. Like I love doing the whole 9 yards. I will go and do my steaming, at night. Like night is really where my skincare routine happens. So I'll, wash my face, and I use my steamer. So the one I love right now is by Dr. Dennis Gross. And I love that steamer because it just, I don't know, it makes me feel so tranquil. I'll do that whole bit, put on a face mask. Usually it's like a sheet mask because I love sheet masks. And that's when I do my meditation. So I'll do my 15 minutes of like something like turn on daily calm or headspace, whatever, I'm feeling. And then that's when I do that. So I take the sheet mask off. When that's done, I go into like, well, what else does my skin need? So if that's when my skin needs to be treated like with a retinol, I'll go in with my retinol, whatever it is I need, so I take my time with it. Really. It's more of like looking at my skin every night and saying, what do I need today? What is it?
That's like a ritual in itself anyway. I mean, it's a very mindful, very caring, nurturing ritual anyway. And it's a really good time to allow your mind to be present and calm your thoughts as well. So it's fantastic.
Absolutely. It's exactly what you said. It feeds onto itself too. Like it's an additive effect, so by the end of all of it, I'm just like zen, like totally.
No, it's perfect. I mean, sleep obviously is for mental health and overall health. And, the fact that you said that you have that quiet time and you turn off all the phones and do a digital detox is so important. One of the things I always say to my clients is make sure you get all your electronics out of your bedroom. It's one of the most important things for quality of sleep. So important. People say, oh, I can exist on a few hours sleep, but it's the best, I think the best tip that you can do is make sure that you have a good night's sleep.
Yes, absolutely. And also surviving and nourishing are two different things, guys. You can't just survive. You got to, love life and live. And to do that, you got to sleep. So I agree. I think that sleep can heal everything.
Yeah, absolutely. So apart from your mindfulness and your facial rituals, Are there anything else that you do? Do you go out walking in the woods, or do you do wild swimming, or do you go to the gym? What other things do you do?
Yeah, so those things, I'm not gonna lie, those things I actually tie into my day, honestly, Marie, because I found that, people talk about exercise a lot and I love it because it's very important, daily exercise routine. But I do that during my day because if I do it at night, it's just it takes over my whole night
Oh,
routine.
no, you can't.
You know what I mean?
You can't do it. No.
You just can't
And also,
do it.
you need to just wind down. In Chinese medicine, we're coming into the yin phase. So we're coming into sort of like quiet time, darkness. In the daytime, it's yang, it's firing up, it's let's get everything going. So, yeah, you definitely don't want to be doing sort of like mad exercising or anything like that.
I can't do it. I can't. So everything for me at night is a calming practice. It's like you said, winding down. But yeah, I exercise daily. I eat healthy. I know we all have busy lifestyles, especially with the holidays. Everyone's so busy. But like for me, berries, for example, like fruits are a must during my day. Antioxidants. Pump your body full of antioxidants. I feel like if people just did that, Marie, I feel like half of the world would be cured of all diseases. like I can't stress the importance of antioxidants enough. And so I make sure of it through my day that I'm, always snacking on something that's going to help my health, in some way. So that's a huge part of my everyday just life and overall wellness. But I have a pretty average, I think, everyday lifestyle. It's pretty minimalistic, really, if you think about it from that standpoint, other than just make sure that I'm not, obviously drinking every night, or I don't smoke, I don't do any of that. So yeah, just the basics, really.
Yeah. But I also believe a little bit of what you fancy does you good,
Yeah.
You've got.
Why not?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean,
you can't live this restricted life so much. You've got to have a little bit of what you fancy. So what is that little bit of what you fancy that you would normally not have?
Don't shoot me, but I've always been like kind of like a huge fan of marijuana because I believe in the power of getting high. Yeah. I really do. I think that it's a really therapeutic thing. All jokes aside, it's very helpful for me. It resonated with me, right? It helped me read better, or whatever I was doing. I got into it more, and I just realized it was something that helped me get away from the bustle of life. And I, even now I have days where I'm like, oh my God, I'm so stressed, or where I'm just like, I need to stop just for a day, just stop. So I'll just, I'll smoke weed once in a while. That's fine.
And so what are your views on psilocybins?
Oh, I love them. Are you kidding me? I'm like the biggest hippie, Marie. Like, Timothy Leary, I know all about him. I did all my homework. I think it's a huge untapped area, when it comes to mental health. And I'm a huge believer in the power of using naturally occurring compounds and using them for therapy. Like if you titrate it correctly, I think you can really do a lot of good. And I know there's a lot of papers out there about it too.
Yeah, there are. And I mean, I'm a great believer in this, but as long as it's under a controlled environment, if people are thinking of taking, because psilocybins, they can go one way or another, especially if you've got past trauma, it can have like a really bad effect. So just make sure that it's always under a controlled environment if you've never taken it before, or if you've never done it before. But just quickly, one last question. If you was on a desert island, what were the 3 things that you would take?
Oh, wow. Okay. Desert island, I would take SPF.
Yep.
Definitely flip-flops.
Yeah.
Because I need something on my feet all the time.
And a joint?
And a joint. Yes.
Yeah.
A joint. I'm not gonna lie. Yeah.
Well, listen,
because that shit sucks. I'm stranded on an island. Yes, Marie.
Listen, I've loved having you on. I'm really, really grateful for your time and thankful for all of your knowledge. Honestly, I've really enjoyed it, and
it's an honor. Every time I talk to you, I have such a great time, Marie. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I love what you're doing here. This is such a cool podcast.
Oh, thanks so much.
I'm honored.
No, honestly, the honor is all mine.
Thank you.
Take care. God bless.
You too.
That's it for this week's Good Vibes Only episode. But there's plenty more wholesome, holistic information where that came from. Check out Marie's website, www.mariereynolds.london.com, or follow Marie on socials. For Marie's products, follow at Marie Reynolds London on Instagram and Facebook, and at Marie Reynolds_London on TikTok. You can also follow Marie's day-to-day content on Instagram. Follow at Marie Reynolds_MRL. Thank you so much for listening to Good Vibes Only. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love for you to subscribe to and review the podcast wherever you listen to them. And remember to share the episode too. See you next time.